Let's get right to it. You caught me at the world headquarters today. I'm in my office. Let's talk about fear, right? The other day, a dude called me for therapeutic services. This isn't 12-step work. This is something different. And he mentioned a number of things that he was having problems with in his life and his relationship. He was dating a young woman, and he was experiencing some challenges dating. And so what he wanted to talk about was feeling like he's being taken advantage of in the relationship, to the point where he actually went through this woman's phone a couple times. Right? He was concerned about that behavior, and that's what compelled him to call me. Walking around feeling insecure, having challenging thoughts, not only about her, but also about his behavior, and experiencing some effects of past trauma. He had gone through a previous divorce, and he was worried, just didn't want to be hurt again. And then feelings of inadequacy. So he wanted to talk to me about it. I'm like, great. The first thing I did after hearing him out was to have him get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, and at the top of the page write, "I'm afraid that ... And I gave him 3 minutes to just write everything he was afraid of on that piece of paper. And what happened after that was very interesting. So I counted him in. 1, 2, 3, go. I started the timer, and he started writing. After about 15 seconds, he said, "Well, I think I got everything I'm afraid of." And I said, "Well, that might be true, but you still have 2 minutes and 45 seconds left, so keep writing." And so he continued to grind. I kept giving him, an idea of how much time he had left. And at the end of 3 minutes, he was shaking his head. He said, "Wow, the things that I wrote at the end are actually the things that are bothering me the most." And so we started talking about it, right? Now, there's 2 parts to this exercise. The first part is to write down what you're afraid of. And the second part is to turn to someone and tell them what you're afraid of. And so what came out of that is, we all have fears that only we understand. And many of us have never really had anybody in our life that we could turn to and say, "This is what I'm afraid of." And if you're a man, it's really a problem, because a big part of manhood is learning how to effectively conceal what you're afraid of. And as you can see from the example I'm providing, it creates a lot of problems, because he felt like he was spending too much money on dates, but really in a way he's compensating for feeling inadequate. He's compensating for feeling like he's not enough. And so it's not that she's doing anything, it's that his fear is operating in a way that he's not aware of. And so does mine. That's why it's important to know where your fear is, because what you end up doing is blaming the other person for something you're afraid of. It's her fault that you're feeling inadequate, or it's her fault that you're spending all this money on a date, because deep down inside you have unexamined feelings of inadequacy, right? And then that red pill nonsense, have you just cast it off, or have you just rationalized it as bitches ain't shit? That nonsense. So we're talking about this, right? And he's getting an opportunity to feel the relief of just saying what the problem is, being validated. See, it's all right to be afraid. We're all afraid. And then I got to give him the bad news, right? The bad news is the fears are not going to go away. Nobody can fix you. That's why you need a God. You need principles, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, faith, trust, commitment. You need a support group. You need some people you can turn to. That's why you need that. Yeah, when you start talking about dealing with your own fear, right? And so, and then the other thing that came out of it, and it always comes out of working with your fear, is your life is on the other side of your fear. It's hiding behind your fear. You know, it's like, I asked him, what did he want from the woman, right? Oh, okay, wait a minute, I need to tell you this. He went through a phone a couple times and found out she wasn't doing anything, okay? And so that came back to him as, you know, what's wrong with me that I got to go through this person's phone? And I'm glad that he called me, right? Because it's just fear. That's the exact nature of what's going on. You're afraid of something that you haven't been able to talk about. I said, what do you want from her? He said, I just like to have really great sex and some really fabulous dates. And I was like, what, does she know that? Because if anybody, when I was dating, if any reasonably attractive person walked up to me and said, hey, I really want to, you know, have great sex with you and go out on dates and have some fun, I'd be like, sure, right? But the fear won't let us say what it really is. So the fear, look, fear robs you of happiness. Everything you want is on the other side of your fear. It's hiding behind your fear. It's important. It's 10:19 in the morning right now. Do you know where your fear is? Because it's operating. It's keeping you from enjoying or experiencing the life that you really want to experience. And you may be running around blaming other people for it. Like you got a problem outside you, moving towards you, when your fear is inside you, working on the world. And all your poisoning your relationships, poisoning your life. So anyway, you know, so we chopped it up. The first part of the exercise is to write down what you're afraid of. See, the 3 minutes forces you to write fast. Don't worry about punctuation, grammar, none of that. Just write down what you're afraid of. You don't have to finish the sentence with, you don't have to write, I'm afraid that, and then finish the sentence. All you got to do is put the end on, right? And don't worry about duplicates. Don't worry about crossing nothing out. Put it all down there. And no matter what you write down, no matter how many fears you write down, trust me, there are more. Right? So when you invite fear to come up in your life, more of it comes up, and you gain access to some unconscious stuff too. Right? That's the first half of the exercise. Second half of the exercise is turn into somebody you trust. And many of us, one of the problems that we have so much trouble managing our fear is that we never had anybody we could turn to like that. We never had anybody that we could talk to about what we were afraid of. And still to this day, we don't have anybody like that. And then, so now after the session, you know, he's gone away from me now. I advised him that he would probably see more things that he's afraid of come up and just make note of them and bring them back to the next session. And as a result of this, you know, like the only thing I can really do to help you with your fear is help you not feel so alone. You know, that's why we turn to another human being. That's the difference between human beings and other animals. Other animals, sometimes when they feel afraid or overwhelmed, they climb trees, they burrow holes. We can do that, but that's not what we typically want to do. If you notice infants, when infants feel afraid, they want to turn and run back to their mother or their father. That's basically what I want to do. But then sometimes we have caregivers that are scarier than what it is we're afraid of, and we can't turn to them. And I usually see them later in treatment with substance abuse problems, domestic violence issues, gambling problems, sex addictions. That's why I'm in the niche I'm in. That's why I'm talking about this, because this is how that comes up. In order to deal with this, you need resources, right? You need, this is the reason why you need God. You need to be able to pray, right? Pray for the strength to carry out the will of your higher power. You need the principles. You need honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, faith, trust, commitment. You need that stuff, because that's the only thing you can do with a fear. They're not going away, you know. And you need courage. See, you wouldn't need courage if you didn't have fear. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is, I feel afraid, but I'm going to be courageous enough to turn to someone and say it out loud and keep doing. You still got to pay bills. You know, he still want to go out with her, and I think he should. He still has to go to his job. We still got to show up. So that's why we need courage. recovery is really learning how to more effectively and constructively manage your fear. That's what recovery is. No matter what anybody else tells you, it might be all that stuff. But one of the main things it is how well you deal with your fear is going to determine how well your recovery is going to be, how well you're going to move forward in life. I'm Gerald Chambers, and that's my little 2 cents on fear. Till next time.